The Fuji X-T5 is an incredible lifestyle camera for almost anyone because it looks gorgeous straight from the camera with zero editing needed. The reason this camera looks so incredible might not be the reason you think. The Fuji X-T5 has this secret sauce that no other camera has, giving you incredible results that no other camera can. So what is the secret sauce in the Fuji X-T5 and why does this matter to you? Let's find out. So in order to understand why the X-T5 is so incredible, imagine this. Whenever you're shooting with your camera, either photos or videos, most of the time the images look pretty good, but they're not great. And in order for them to look great, you have to edit them, because even with the best cameras in the world, the real magic in photography and video really happens in the editing. But for most people, they don't want to edit, they don't know how to edit, or they might not even have the phone or computer to edit. So you never really get the photos and videos you actually want. But with the Fuji camera, the photos and videos already look edited right from the camera, and they're ready to share right away as soon as you shoot them. And this makes the whole process of shooting photos and videos more enjoyable, and this allows you to focus more on creativity instead of spending hours on YouTube learning to edit and then actually editing. And when you compare the colors from the Fuji X-T5 even next to a professional full-frame camera, the Fuji camera looks way better simply because of the colors. Also, before I tell you exactly why the colors in this camera look so incredible, just want to let you guys know I'll leave links down below with the best possible pricing on the Fuji X-T5. The reason the X-T5 and all Fuji cameras look so incredible is because they actually have 19 film emulations built right into the camera. And each individual film emulation gives you vibrant and unique colors that are absolute eye candy. And they also allow you to quickly change the color palette of your photos and videos and dramatically change the mood of your photos and videos by simply swapping through different film profiles. So you can go from vibrant and rich colors to cool, futuristic, desaturated colors with just a click. And each film profile can also be customized to help you create your own custom look, and you can really go deep by picking things like grain, chromatic aberration, and even things like where your highlights and shadows sit. This might sound a little bit complicated, so there's even online communities where people actually get together and share their own custom profiles, so you can just copy them. But not only will you have limitless possibilities by always having new film recipes to try out, but you will probably make a few online friends that also love Fuji cameras. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, oh my God, whatever, it's just hipsters hanging out with color filters, my iPhone does that. There's actually a really incredible piece of hardware in this camera that makes all of this possible. Fuji has actually developed their own X-Trans sensor in-house, so they didn't buy this from another company and just stick it in their camera. And this sensor does some really unique things. Because of the unique pixel structure in the X-Trans sensor, it allows you to capture image quality and detail level that is on par with a professional $5K or $6,000 camera, and you've never really been able to get this level of quality in such a small camera. In my opinion, the Fuji X-T5 is kind of like the budget like a Q2, and that's because the Fuji X-T5 actually has a 40 megapixel APS-C size sensor, which is currently also the highest resolution APS-C sensor in the world. And this allows you to get a level of fidelity that you have never seen in a camera this small. But when you combine such an incredibly powerful sensor with the amazing colors from the X-T5, that's when you really start to see what a special camera this is. Because with these features, every photo already looks good, and this lets you get to your desired outcome of a good looking photo and video faster and without the hassle of editing. There is obviously a time and a place where editing is important and you have to, but most of the time I don't want to. I just want to get something good looking and move on. Now, I wouldn't care about this camera if it just looked good. What's really interesting is that with the brand new processor, you can also do really special things when it comes to photos and videos at speeds that I've never really seen in a camera like this before. Because similar to like a high-end DSLR, you can also shoot 15 frames per second, and with this, you get a 116 frames per second frame buffer for JPEGs or 19 raw photos. But if you slow that down just a little bit to 10 frames per second, you actually get 1,000 JPEGs in a row. Sadly, only 19 raw frames still. But if there's times where you really need to put the pedal to the metal, you're shooting sports, live action, something where you're not going to get the chance again, you can also go up to 20 frames per second electronic shutter mode. Now, electronic shutter mode, you're obviously going to get rolling shutter and some artifacting, but that's really fast. But this mode does come with a pretty heavy 2.9 times crop, so you'll only be getting a 24 megapixel resolution in this mode. This basically zooms into your sensor and all of your images are tighter. Now, autofocus can sometimes become a problem when you're shooting at a really high frame rate of 15 to 20 frames per second, One thing that Fuji has done is with a new firmware update, they've actually accelerated their eye tracking algorithm, and now everything seems to track faster, including animals, airplanes, and cars. But I would still say it's not perfect. It has like a 90% accuracy, but it still has a way to go before it's as good as Canon or Sony. But the Fuji X-T5 does have a joystick in the back to change your autofocus points, and it also has touch autofocus using the screen on the back. But video is where I am personally in love with this camera. I do photography with this, and I like it, but video is where I just fell in love. This camera doesn't only just shoot 4K, oh no. It actually shoots 6.2K at 24 and 30 frames per second thanks to that 40 megapixel sensor. 6.2K resolution is not something I have seen in most pro cameras, and if 6.2K is too much resolution for you, you can still shoot 4K HQ, which actually downsamples the full 6K video resolution into a 4K file, so you still get 6K detail and 6K sharpness. But this way, you can use these video files on a slower computer or phone. And if you shoot in regular 4K, you can also shoot up to 60 frames per second for 2x slow motion. This is a feature that most professional videographers want in their camera, so it's really impressive to see this in a small little lifestyle camera. And if you really love slow motion, you can also shoot up to 120 frames per second or 240 frames per second in full HD. I highly recommend using these modes. This way you can take a simple random moment while you're traveling or out and about and really make it feel epic and feel like something special. And you also have the f-log1 and 2 in the internal film profile. These are flat cinematic profiles for someone that doesn't want to use the internal colors and instead wants to go into an editing software and create their own cinematic look. Now, whether using the X-T5 as a lifestyle camera, as a hobby camera, travel camera, or a content creator, chances are you're going to be shooting this camera mostly handheld. And I was really impressed by how good the in-body stabilization with this camera is. I was able to do some really crazy moves that I would normally need a gimbal for, and even when I used a gimbal with this camera, I honestly felt like I had a better time just using the in-body stabilization and moving the camera wherever I wanted. So the X-T5 sounds pretty incredible, right? Great sensor, great colors, great shooting speeds, but it's not perfect. There's some things I love about this camera, but there's definitely some red flags you should know before picking one up. I really love the fact that Fuji made this into a vintage style camera with all of the old school dials, but you still have all the modern switches on this camera, so you can use this like a vintage camera or a modern camera. I love how small this camera is. It can basically fit in my entire hand, and I'm not some massive guy. I'm only 5'10", so this is a really small camera. I like the fact that I can put it on a strap, just take it everywhere with me, but a lot of times I do find that it's just a little too small for my hands. I highly recommend putting a side grip on this or a thumb grip. I didn't have one while I was shooting with it, but I definitely feel like this would be improved with that. But kudos to Fuji for making really good small compact lenses for this camera. The ones that I probably recommend for lifestyle shooters is the 23mm and 35mm. I think they look the best on the camera as well. And if you're someone that wants a versatile zoom that can kind of do everything, especially a video lens, I ended up using the 16 to 35mm lens, and I had really good results with it. One thing that really needs to be updated are the Fuji menus. They're kind of bare bones, they don't look great, and they're not very efficient, and sometimes they can actually be slow to navigate. The touch sensitivity on the back of the screen isn't great, and touch autofocus just feels slow overall. These are features that like even some of the cheapest cameras have, and they do it better than the X-T5, so it's a little disappointing to see that. The screen on the back is also only a tilt screen, which is perfect for photos, but if you're going to do any kind of video, you won't be able to tilt the screen towards yourself to see yourself, and it's kind of heartbreaking for even a video shooter like me where this screen just doesn't do it for me. But I will say the battery life is shockingly good. For photos, I think I got at least 1,000 photos on a single charge, even though Fuji says it should be closer to 700, and I was able to shoot for a few hours of non-stop video with this camera on a single charge. The X-T5 has some shortcomings, and it's not a perfect camera, but considering how incredible the image quality is, how good the sensor is, the colors are absolutely magnificent. I think all of those things are worth getting this camera for, despite the few shortcomings. And if you decide to pick this camera up, make sure to check out the links down below for the best possible pricing on the Fuji X-T5, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.